Well, I saw it. Many of you know that I am a Ghostbusters, not just a fan, but a super fan. I grew up absolutely loving the Ghostbusters. The real Ghostbusters cartoon is probably my all-time favorite cartoon. Ghostbusters video game on Xbox 360 might be one of my all-time favorite video games, even though it's not that great as a video game, but I do think it stands in as the true Ghostbusters 3 movie. I've said many times before, and it's not my original idea or thought, but you can watch all the cutscenes put together from the Ghostbusters video game for Xbox 360, I think. That is the third Ghostbusters movie to me. I never wanted another movie after that. And I'm a guy who really liked Ghostbusters 2 and saw no problem with it, other than it jumping the shark a bit at times. I thought that Ghostbusters 2 was scary. And, Vigo was a frightening character for me as a young one. And I still think that movie holds up. Yes, there are some insane moments with the Statue of Liberty and that. But, hey, we're talking about giant marshmallow men walking the streets too. So I can't be that picky. However, I went into this movie extraordinarily concerned that it was going to be another soulless remake. Even seeing the son of the original director, Jason Reitman, the son of Ivan Reitman, directing it, I was mildly pacified. And I will say the film had a lot of problems. But as a Ghostbusters mega fan, I absolutely loved it. I cried in the theater. I teared up, a single tear, in the corner of my eye that I had to cough and clear away. There were a lot of things I was worried about. The film itself, I'd like to break this review into kind of two parts. Ghostbusters Afterlife as a movie, and then Ghostbusters Afterlife as a fan of Ghostbusters. Because let's be honest, that's their target market, right? Are fans of Ghostbusters. So as a movie, Ghostbusters Afterlife was a 6.5 to 7 out of 10. It was 2 hours long. It didn't really seem to drag too much, but there were a lot of little things that were never addressed. There were plot points that were glossed over. For example, Phoebe, the star of the film, played by McKenna Grace, who does a great job, just knows how the proton packs work, and just knows how the ghost trap works, and just knows how, there's this RC car in the Ecto-1 that they just know how that works. I get it. I'm nitpicking, but as a film, you're like, wait a minute, how do they know how this stuff worked? There's a lot of that, which kind of drags the film down. I think they spent a little too much time on, worrying about the little mini Stay Puffs, which I'm sure they're worried about selling merch, because otherwise, merchandise, the only other merchandisable character in this film was Muncher. And he wasn't great. He wasn't memorable. Everybody else already exists in the Ghostbusters universe. But overall, it reminded me a lot of Stranger Things, but not too much. Or even like the Goonies. These are kids' movies, but can be and were enjoyed by adults. The theater was full of adults, and they clapped at the end of the movie. That's how you know you're in a boomer crowd. And yes, there were problems. The film was, I think, so worried about respecting the past that it spent a lot of time on member berries. That said, I loved each and every one of them. Why? Because I'm a Ghostbusters super fan. If you're just watching this movie as a Ghostbusters, you only casually know about Ghostbusters, you're probably going to get distracted by all the member berries because you have no idea what they're even talking about. But as a Ghostbusters fan, it was awesome. I loved every one of them. Every single part of even the post-credit scene, which, yes, there is a post-credit scene, and I highly recommend staying around for it. It was awesome. What I liked about the film also was that it didn't sequel bait. You get a satisfying conclusion. Now, I want to talk about the elephant in the room, Harold Ramis. Harold Ramis passed away a few years back, who played Egon Spengler. And there was a lot of concern within me about how they would handle his passing. They did awesome. I think they did awesome handling his, his disappearance or his, the fact that he wasn't there in the film. Beautifully handled, and they handle it right away in the first 5 minutes. And they do it very well. There are little nitpicky things. For example, as a Ghostbusters superfan, there will be things that annoy you. First, let me give you a couple that bothered me as Ghostbusters superfan. One, crossing the streams. There is a moment in which they are fighting the big bad. Streams are crossed and they don't do it right, or it doesn't match what they did in the first Ghostbusters. I don't want to spoil anything, but I'll say that. Two, there's also a really kind of cringy, there's this, remember the Harry Potter scene where he's like casting a spell against, I don't know who the bad guy is in that movie, the guy with no nose. And then they have like their spells are like fighting. Ugh. They have like a scene like that. And I immediately thought of Harry Potter and I hated it, but it was just a tiny thing. The proton packs. There's been one very vocal person on Twitter who keeps saying, Jeremy, they handle how the kids pick up the proton packs. No, they don't. Phoebe McKenna Grace is probably 80 pounds in real life, and she picks up the proton pack. Yeah, it's heavy for her, but she's got no problem running around with it on her back, which is annoying to me. A nitpick, okay? A nitpick. I accept that. And most people aren't going to care. It's not like that big of a deal. The idea of, the kids, I mentioned this earlier. Yes, Phoebe is set up as like some sort of genius, but she just automatically knows how to use the proton packs. Now, the proton packs have multiple beams that they can throw. You have the containment beam, and then you have like the standard beam. They don't go through any of that, and they just know how to do it. That annoyed me a little bit. But again, that's only going to bother you if you're a curmudgeon. It's not going to bother you if you just go in and have a good time. Overall, Ghostbusters Afterlife was shredded by critics because it had too much fan service. To me, yes, it had a lot of fan service. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but it did have so much of it that it never really stood on its own as its own movie. It just felt like this weird side story in the original Ghostbusters or something like that. But they have this fun kind of mirror image of the original Ghostbusters. There's this little kid who goes by the name Podcast. He just really reminds you of Ray Stantz. So they have like the young kid, Lucky, who's Celeste O'Connor, I think. She mirrors Peter Venkman. Obviously, Phoebe mirrors Spengler. And they're not in your face about it. You just kind of pick it up if you know. Like, if you know, you know. And there's a great moment at the end with Podcast meeting, Stance that is hilarious. Yes, the movie had too many member berries, but because I'm a Ghostbusters super fan, I didn't care. I was so baked out of my gourd on member barium that I didn't really care about, I just felt like I was watching this like updated version of many of my favorite scenes from the original Ghostbusters. But I left the theater feeling like I didn't care about it. And I did feel like I got a satisfying conclusion for all of the Ghostbusters. You kind of find out what they've been up to since, the 80s. And it's good. The movie's good. If you're for final score, I have to break it up into two. Just have to, because there's way too many member berries for this to stand alone as somebody who's never seen a Ghostbusters movie. If you've never seen a Ghostbusters movie, I'll give this movie a 6.5. And you might be saying that's low. Well, I run my scores like the One Bite Pizza reviews. I never give 10s. 6.5 is like an average film, average to above average. But before you freak out. If you liked the Ghostbusters, I'll give this movie a 9. If you're expecting a third Ghostbusters movie, this ain't it. But if you love Ghostbusters and you just want to munch on some popcorn and enjoy yourself, this movie's a 9. If you're a Ghostbusters super fan, like me, I gave it an 11 out of 10. But understand that score is not fair. You know, the real movie is probably somewhere around, for a Ghostbuster fan. Let me pull up the audience score. I bet you it's pretty high. Hold on a second. Yep, 96. So the fans love it. There's nothing wrong with fan service. I am a fan of Ghostbusters. I thought Paul Rudd did pretty good. There's so many member berries, I can't even name them. But I was happy I saw the film. I went into it with an open mind, and it's very flawed. It stumbles at times, but you're so happy to be seeing all of these member berries that you just don't care. It's just good. That's my opinion as a Ghostbusters super fan. I would recommend going and seeing this in the theater if you like the Ghostbusters. If you don't know anything about the Ghostbusters, then you could probably wait to stream it. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.